Hello everyone. Today I'm going to talk about cutting and self-harm, and do people do it for attention? Now, this is the most commonly held, sometimes proper conception, but oftentimes misconception about people who participate in self-harm. Uh, and usually when somebody hears about a cutter, they're saying, oh, they just want attention. They they either just cry for help, and they just want somebody to actually care. Now sometimes that's the truth, and honestly I don't judge people for wanting attention. I mean, sometimes communication isn't the easiest thing in regards to depression, wanting to die, or just crying out for help. Sometimes we can't communicate with our words. We're not a lot of people that participate in self-harm aren't the best communicators a lot of the time, myself included. Now, back when I was doing this all the time, high school years, I imagine, and I think it was partly because it was a cry for help. I wanted somebody to know how much pain I was in. I wanted somebody to recognize how much pain I was in. But for me, I think the vast majority of it was about 70% of it was that I I felt better afterwards. And now this isn't something that I would recommend. Like, I don't recommend that you cut yourself to feel better, but I felt better because the mind is just lit up when you cut yourself and you harm yourself. All those areas that are just kind of low activity when you're depressed kind of light up when you hurt yourself. And it's a transference of pain from one area of your life to another, from feeling pain mentally to feeling pain physically. And that's definitely a huge part of why I did it. However, I've talked about this before, and I really want to get to the idea that, and I don't self harm anymore, most certainly for not that purpose. But I want to get to the idea of it being a cry for help. People usually look down on you if you're crying out for help through self harm. It's like, oh, he's just being a baby, a whiner. She's just being dramatic, something like that. But even if it's just a cry for help, we have to realize that if your depression is so bad to where you have to show physical signs because you can't communicate those signs, you can't communicate your depression, then that person really does need help. That person deserves the time of day, deserves our recognition, and most certainly isn't just complaining, because when you get to that level, you're really in a bad state, and you're willing to harm yourself in order to show how bad of a state you're in mentally. And suicide is not that many steps later when somebody is participating in self-harm. It's not that far away from the acts of self-harm, like cutting, pulling hair, jamming one's hand into things to like car doors in order to make bruising or broken bones. Though a lot of the time, addiction is involved when you're trying to break bones, because then you can get medication, and then you can get the opiates that you want. I was an opioid addict for a long time, and I never did that, but I knew a lot of people who did. But when it gets to that level, to where you're willing to hurt yourself, and so that people can see, or so that your brain is more focused on something else besides that mental pain, you're in a terrible state, and it deserves to be recognized by other people. Now, it isn't societally understood that people who self-harm are in this terrible state. A lot of people will just say, oh, they're just complaining, or they, obviously, if they really wanted to commit suicide, they would have done that instead of hurt themselves, instead of making scars to show other people. But I found that when I did it, a lot of the time I was trying to hide the scars. And like I said, that's why I think it's 70% that I was trying to make my mind go into a different state of being, trying to light up my nervous system so that those areas of my brain would be active again. And now, I don't think I understood that at the time, but subconsciously, that's why I was doing it. And for schizophrenics especially, schizophrenics like me, and many others, most of our world is inside. It's hard for people to see our inner world. It's hard for people to understand our inner world, especially. And self-harm, showing those scars, even if you're hesitant to show people after you do them because you don't want to be judged, yet you're still crying out for help. It's a very chaotic state of mind, a really chaotic method by which you achieve the level of liberation and attention that you want to achieve. And it never lasts for long. When you're subconsciously trying to light up those areas of your brain that are so dead, not dead, but low energy when you're depressed. And I've seen pictures of depressed people's brains and normal brains, or somebody who's addicted for a long time and somebody who has basically a normal brain, and there's a lot of inactivity in the places that usually make us happy. Now, as a society, we need to start recognizing this, the connection between the need for the lack of communication and the need for assistance. And we got a long way to go, because nobody really wants to look at mental health in general, in any society really, even in the societies like the United States. In Europe it's a little bit better, but everywhere else around the world, we don't like to look at it because it's something that's misunderstood, not understood at all in a lot of cases, and something that is very hard to deal with. Methods have not been created to deal with this except through medication and some effective psychological techniques through therapy that work for some people, whether it be creating art, whether it be exercise, whether it be working out past occurrences in your life that may have been drawn you to this fragile state, this state of pain mentally. And I will say that the mental pain that I have felt was nothing compared to the physical pain, any physical pain that I've put myself through. And even in some fights, I've had my face bones broken. I have cracks in my skull that have healed by now, but you can still kind of see them in an x-ray. And I've had my nose broken twice. I've had 3 concussions from fights where I just didn't care. Like I felt like I just didn't try to beat up the other person in a fight because I didn't like myself and I was willing to be beat up, but I didn't really realize it at the time. And this is a form of self-harm too. When you look at the desire for self-destruction and getting into a fight and you don't try to win with somebody that you know is going to beat you up. It's a vast topic, self-harm, and doing it to get attention shouldn't be looked down upon, but it's also not always the case. And I just want to shed more light on that. I've talked on this before, but even if somebody is looking for attention, that's not like saying, that's not the same as oh, they're just whining now. Maybe, it'll work itself out. They'll never really hurt themselves, like suicide. And some of the times it might be true that they won't go all the way toward suicide, but people who self-harm really do need help. And this is why I'm always honest about it. This is why I'm always willing to engage people. Comment section on YouTube, in real life, what have you. Whenever I meet somebody that participates in self-harm. And the reason I say participate is a lot of the time it's circumstances that force us, I don't want to say force, but almost force us into these situations. It's always a choice. But circumstances converge in such a way where it's almost impossible for an individual to handle it a lot of the time. So they resort to these chaotic and painful means to deal with it, these cries for attention. And so it's more of a participation in self-harm than an actual complete decision all by yourself to self-harm. And we don't always communicate or deal with situations in the right way. This is not a good way to deal with situations, of course, but there needs to be better understanding about these things, and this is why I talk about it openly. I have scars all over my body from this. I've branded myself twice, and a lot of these scars aren't going to go away, and it's been years since I've had some of these scars. I have my chest, I really opened up my chest about 3 times, and there's some other minor scars on my chest and my arm, but I've sliced all the way through the epidermis on my chest, and the dermis, but if I'm getting my terms right, I'm not really privy to layers of skin and muscle, but I sliced all the way to the muscle on my chest, and it surprised me as much as it surprised anybody else that I showed much later, because I didn't show this off initially. It was eventually seen later, but it surprised me just as much, and at the time I didn't really know I was doing it, but like I said, it kind of lights up those parts of your brain for, I don't know, even if it was like a full day, it wouldn't be worth it, like I said before, but just minutes gets your mind away from it, attending to the wound, things like that. It's not a good place to be. And if anybody has any questions about this or anybody wants to make comments, I'm completely open to them. And I'm not thin-skinned. I don't really care about insults and things like that. That's why I'm willing to talk about it openly. So if you want to engage with me on this topic and ask questions, look for support or help, and even if you want support from me, I'm open and willing to do that. Obviously, I've become very spiritual and I have a lot of outlets, but some people aren't spiritual. Some people are atheists or agnostic. I'm completely open to them too. I don't think they're going to hell or anything like that. But I found that even talking to people who aren't spiritual or religious in any way, sometimes we can work things out if we engage each other on these topics, and not just me specifically, but just people who self-harm in general, have self-harm, harmed themselves in the past. But this was just a little bit of a rant on self-harm and, is it seeking attention, and what that really means. But I hope you've enjoyed this. Like I said, comment section's down there if you want to engage. But thank you very much for watching, and I hope to talk to all of you in the future.